going to Portugal last year was a little bit more hectic. We did a lot more things, and we went to two different places. We went to Lisbon and Porto. So this year, just going to Lisbon and being able to like kind of like slow down and enjoy, have a lot more relaxing time, I definitely think was different than what we did last year, which I enjoyed a lot because it felt more like a vacation than a trip. Whereas comparative to when we went to London, we then had the trip portion where we got to go and like see things and do other stuff, which I really liked.
I like the more relaxed feeling we had in Portugal this year. I feel like we're all comfortable with the area, and we no one I don't think anyone felt too rushed or overwhelmed with Portugal and with Lisbon this year. Weather was perfect, like it was last year, so I definitely enjoyed that. I enjoyed our location wise this year. We were really close to the beach, which was really nice. It was like maybe a 2 minute walk, probably less. I'd argue even like a 1 minute walk. So we got some time to relax. And overall, I like the more relaxed feeling we had in Portugal this year. We went to I believe it was a modern art museum, which was interesting. It was different. I thought there were a lot of definitely like interesting things there, but overall, I thought the being able to explore more, I definitely enjoyed.
This year, when we went to Portugal, like the 2019 trip, it was a lot more relaxing and like less sightseeing and everything than the trip before. I think that was just because we've already seen a whole bunch of stuff in Portugal, so this time we kind of took it more like 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 we've already been there, and we were kind of just like we went to the beach and kind of walked around and planned our stuff day by day, and yeah, I think it was definitely more relaxing, and definitely we didn't see as much, but I think it was just as good as the first trip.
It was really nice to return to Portugal for the second time. On the first visit, we did a lot of the more traditional sightseeing things that were really, nice and unique to Lisbon and Porto. But what that did was when we returned to Lisbon this year, it was really nice. It was a little bit more laid back, our visit. I'm pretty sure that we decided on our daily itinerary more like spontaneously. I think one of the highlights of our second visit to Portugal was visiting Cascais, which was a beautiful seaside town, I guess you call it. And we took the train there. It was a nice little train ride, not too far from where we were staying. And we walked around, we looked at stores, we went to like an art area where they had galleries, and then had a really nice lunch. So it was a beautiful place. It was kind of leisurely. We didn't have a big plan of what we were doing, and that kind of made it nice too. It fit with the atmosphere. The weather was beautiful, like amazing, the whole time we were there. So that was definitely one of the highlights of our return trip to Portugal.
The things I remember the most about Lisbon were the going to the wonderful museum that Barbara and I went to. That museum is Berardo. It was a wonderful museum with a lot of art from the early and middle 20th century that I'd been seeing in books as an artist all my life. And so it was very exciting to go and see some of that art. So we went to Lisbon, and we took a tut-tut to the top of the hill in Lisbon, where there is a castle. One of the interesting things was I found a street musician who was playing wonderful music on a very strange instrument that looked like a spaceship. Very drum-like, but very beautiful music. And I bought a CD from him, and the music turned out to be spectacular. So then we wandered around a little bit, and finally we found one of the trolleys was empty enough for us to get on because they were quite crowded. And we got on a trolley, and we kind of took the typical tour, I guess, that us tourists take around the hill and around the city.
We saw wonderful things in Lisbon. We were in Lisbon last year, and last year we had a wonderful time. I think Portugal is wonderful. The people in Portugal are really, really great. They're friendly, they're nice, the food is good. But in terms of the sights, we had seen a lot of the sights last year, and we renewed what we wanted to see. Actually, I listened to Tristan, and Tristan had been disappointed he hadn't gone on the trolley cars. The trolley cars are a big symbol of Lisbon. They're everywhere. They come chugging up the streets, and they're very 19th century looking. And Tristan had been disappointed he didn't go in one. So we went up to the castle, and then we didn't go in the castle because we didn't want to pay entrance fees 2 years in a row. We had seen it the year before. And we started walking down from the castle, and we came upon a trolley car. We had previously tried to get in one, but it was so crowded we didn't want to wait in the line. But this time we did get into the trolley car, and we went chugging around the city. I hope Tristan really liked it. To me, it seemed kind of like the tea in Boston. The thing I liked the best in Portugal was Cascais, and that is a little town on the way to Sintra, but so much better than Sintra. It was full of tourists. I think maybe they were mostly Portuguese tourists, Portuguese architecture. We walked around, and we actually went in an art display place where there were a courtyard surrounded by shops of artists, and we went in a lot of the art shops, and a lot of the artists had interesting displays. We went to a museum which was in a house. Well, the stuff in the house weren't particularly interesting except for one room with wonderful tiles, in which the whole room was made of tiles. But other than that, Paul and I then went and sat on a little portico by the side of the museum and had a wonderful time in the sun, looking at the sea and looking at the boats going back and forth.
One of the things that I found very interesting about going to London to meet our family that you wouldn't have been able to really see through like Facebook would have been the parallels between my aunt and my mom. And because they've never met before in person, they never really interacted with each other, and seeing them have some of the same quirks, have the same hair, like the same skin tone, and like the same mannerisms was very weird. Cousin who I've never met before, and then we look kind of very similar, was extremely weird. So that was very fun. But it was really nice to meet family that I've never met before, and them accept us so quickly. Like we didn't just meet, that like we've been their family all along. I am in regards to London and tourism. I really liked the amount of different types of shops that we could go to do some shopping, because I'm a big fashion person. I like that stuff. So being able to, London being like a hub for the type of fashion that my brothers and I are into, and being able to go to all these different shops and like touch and feel the stuff in person compared to looking at it on like a store shop was really cool.
Going down the river, I felt like it gave us a good snapshot of all the different like hubs and stuff in London, and I definitely feel like while we got to see kind of a lot of very specific part of London, I definitely would have liked to see a lot more of it because it's a huge city. Even flying in, I was talking to my mom and I was like, so like which part is London? And she said it's all London. So it was definitely nice to see like different snapshots in history about the different parts of London that we didn't necessarily maybe get to go see in full, but like get to learn about in person. I'd like to go back to London. It was a really interesting and history rich city with a lot of culture that I would definitely say. There was a lot of different culture that I maybe didn't get to see completely, but I definitely like to explore it more.
I really didn't know what Francesca was going to be like. I heard a lot about her from my mom. Getting there and meeting her in Camden, I think we met her in Camden Square. I could tell right away she was like super excited to meet us, which was nice. We went to her house for dinner the next night, and Alex cooked, and I have to say he outdid himself with all the cooking. I heard he had been preparing for a few days before, so that was nice. And I think everyone really appreciated that. And then meeting Rupert as well, he was definitely interesting. I mean, he's a musician and Alex is a chef, so I drew some interesting parallels. And even looking at Marcus, my brother, and Alex, our, I guess you would say maybe like second cousin, half cousin, something like that. They're definitely some similarities. Like I remember Francesca and Rupert talking about the time they went to Jamaica. All the siblings that knew each other at the time went to Jamaica, and everyone in Jamaica or in the area, I don't know, the people that knew Duke, and everyone was saying, "Oh, you look like Duke. Oh, Duke used to do this here. He used to do this here." And I felt like that was probably the most, I would say, the most like eye-opening story, just in the sense that you really understand, I guess you could say, like the influence that he had and a new network of people that we know all across the world. Like now we know we have relatives in like Australia, England, like all over the world. I think Canada, maybe Jamaica as well. So New York. So I mean, it's just this whole new network of people that we know now, which I think is really cool. We spent a lot of time around Piccadilly Circus shopping, so I thought it was a different experience to me going into shops and seeing like I guess the only way to put it is like full price stores and versus like I work at an outlet store. Going to London, things there are super expensive. But I think my favorite tourist type thing that we did was trying out different foods in different places. Because on previous trips, me and my younger brother haven't really gotten to experience a lot of the food in the places we've been. We kind of had to like play it safe because we both have allergies. But I think in this place, one, I think it was the language barrier, but two, I think there's just so many different cultures in London that there were so many different places that we could try. For example, we lived down the street from this Korean place, which I probably wouldn't have tried it if it wasn't for my older brother, but we went and it was delicious. And now I'm back in America looking for places to find Korean food. We had Jamaican food, which was delicious. So I think experiencing the food and also getting a taste of the different cultures was my favorite touristy thing that we did.
We first met Francesca at Camden Market and we like sat down and talked with her and like caught up a little bit, and then we met her again with like the rest of our family at their house and had like lunch dinner type of thing, and we got to like I got to meet family that I've never met before, like all of them I've never met before, and I think that was just a really cool experience because it was like different. Like most of my like all the family that I know right now I've pretty much like met and like I have a relationship with, and it's cool to like build more relationships with family that I've never met. Camden Market was really cool because we were like walking around and we got to see Francesca there, which was cool. So it wasn't just the usual perspective of like vacationing where you're kind of like figuring it out yourself. Like we kind of had, it was almost like a little tour guide that like knew it and was like showing us around. We got to look around, and I think that was really cool because it wasn't too structured. It was kind of just like, oh yeah, we can go here. Yeah, I think the river tour was like, I liked it. I think it was a little bit like long for me, and then we didn't get out at every stop, so we didn't like see everything we could. But also, if we did, it would have been like very long, and then we probably would have been on it like all day almost. But I think it was cool to like see, like because the boat driver, the guy, he like was talking about like some of the stuff going there, and I think that was really cool.
London was really interesting and totally different than Portugal. It's like a city, kind of busy, bustling, lots of tourists. So it had a totally different feel, but I really liked it. I really did. It felt like there's so much to see in London that you could, I don't know, I feel like I could visit like 3 more times and still just, see, sort of just start to see some of the important things in London. But one of the things that we did that made it really special was we got to visit Francesca and Alex, and they hosted us for a really nice afternoon, and see Rupert, our the extended John family. So that made it very special, and I guess we could have been anywhere in the world doing that, and it would have been equally as special. We had like the one main day where we did sightseeing, which was taking the boat ride, the river cruise, and where it started at Westminster, and then it had like 3 or 4 stops along the river. I don't think that we really did a lot of other real sightseeing besides like walking around, which actually I really enjoyed. I enjoyed walking by the river, just sort of exploring. I went shopping with the boys one day. 2 main things that we did for sightseeing. We went to Camden Town. We met Francesca there, and that was fun. It was like this really pretty. I guess it was more of a shopping area, but in like a older industrial buildings. Maybe they reuse those. And something we did was to take the ride on the river. I feel like there's so much more of London to explore, so it seems like could go back and see, like, have a whole different experience just being a tourist there.
There's 2 things I really enjoyed in London, and the first was our trip down the Thames on the hop-on, hop-off boat. And the captain knew a lot and had a lot of information to impart, even though he wasn't an actual professional travel guide. He imparted a lot of information about London and about the various areas that we were passing and about some of the buildings.
Coming up on the right, we have a warship. This is the HMS Belfast. She was built in Belfast, Northern Ireland, at the Harland and Wolff shipyard, the same place where they built the ill-fated Titanic.
We also went by the Thames Eye, I think it's called, which is a sort of like an enormous Ferris wheel. It's about 110 feet tall. And you would be moving at 1 mile an hour. And you would get to see London from, I think, 110, 120 feet up there. But we decided not to do that because it was kind of expensive and it would have meant standing in another line for a long period of time. The next day, we walked along the river, went to see the Parliament building. We went down to see the changing of the guard, and we went to Buckingham Palace to see if we could see the Queen and the Prince, but they weren't there. And there was a huge crowd of people in front of the fence, and they were doing a changing of the guard. The other thing we did, which I really enjoyed, was we went to the National Museum, and in the National Museum had a tremendous collection of great Renaissance art. And one of the paintings that we saw, I don't remember the name of, but it was a Bruegel, and it was a fabulous, fabulous painting. And then there were some Titians and Rembrandts and all the other well-known Renaissance artists. The most exciting and wonderful part of the trip for me, the whole trip, was going to have dinner with Francesca and Rupert and Alex. They went out of their way to make us welcome and to give us a fabulous, fabulous meal. First time in my life I've ever had curried goat, which actually was very good. And I had a wonderful conversation with Rupert. They all put themselves out. They were all extremely hospitable, and that was the highlight of my trip. And that was great because it came at the end. So I really enjoyed the experience of being in London, which is gigantic, much larger than I had ever thought. And I enjoyed actually traveling on their extremely well-run subway system called the Tube or the Underground, much better than the one in Boston. And all in all, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience again to be with Barbara and Tanya and Marcus, Jordan, and Tristan, and I enjoyed it immensely.
When we got to London, it was so clear that London was totally different from Lisbon, and there were cities that could be on two different planets, at least two different continents. And London is very similar in some ways to New York, only not as high. Did something really quite good for people who were going to only be there 4 days, and we wouldn't be able to see too much of the tourist spots. We took a hop-on, hop-off boat along the river, and we went up to different sites along the river, and we got up to the last place before the boat turned around, and we all got off, not to look at the sights, although there was a beautiful ancient boat there, a 17th century boat, I think. But we went to a restaurant there, and it turned out to be such a lovely experience. The food was excellent, and the companionship was extraordinary, and we had a really good time. Then we got back on the boat, and we went back down the river. But in going down, up and down the river, we saw a lot of the sights. We saw the Houses of Parliament, we saw the Eye, we saw the place, the Mayflower. I really liked that. The Mayflower was stored in one of these little docks on the side of the river. And then we saw the London Bridge. And we had the person who the commentator was the captain. And he wasn't a professional commentator, but he was very good and told very interesting stories about all the sights along the way. The last 2 days were really about family and about Francesca and her son and Rupert, who came all the way from Australia. We went to a small town. It was part of London, but it was a section of London that was like almost a little township in itself. And it was a place that was kind of like the Faneuil Market. It was a combination of the Faneuil Market and Venice. It had a little river running through it with boats like Venice, but then it had a million food shops from food stalls from every country that you could possibly think of. So if you were fussy, you could really figure out what exact kind of food you wanted, if you wanted it from Zimbabwe, Indonesia, or Turkmenistan. However, Paul and I just grabbed the first food we could find because we just couldn't sort our way through all that. And we were lucky because it was extremely crowded. We found a table. And then we went shopping. We went into the little shops around and went shopping. Then we came home. The next day, Francesca invited us to her house. And in her house, she prepared the best dinner for us, she and her son. In the dinner, there were like 3 types of some Jamaican fish, some curry goat, some jerk chicken, and all kinds of vegetables and salads and desserts. It was just, she had put herself out so much. It was really heart-rending how much she had put herself out. I so appreciated it. And it was wonderful to sit and talk to our relatives, Duke's children and grandchildren. And we had just a lovely time that day. And that night, the most stressful time in our whole trip occurred. We had to get back to the airport and we couldn't find a vehicle to really tell us. And we had a very, very early morning. So we stayed up all night and we took the subway, the underground at 2 o'clock to get to the airport on time. And that was definitely not fun and not a fun part of traveling. All in all, the trip was sensational.